Okay, hey, we're into another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Type. A really cool watch for you from the brand OLTO-8 watches. They were founded back in 2020, and essentially Alto is an 8 in Italian, and it also is the same shape, of course, as the symbol for infinity. It's just kind of turned on its side, and really they believe the number 8 means the perfect life in terms of working in 8-hour cycles, 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of entertainment. There's a certain magic to the number 8 and the number infinity. Now, in terms of the type of watch, I'd really consider this a wild card watch, but a versatile one at that. But some key common characteristics in design when you're looking for a wild card, of course, you're going to want that standout or statement timepiece that trades versatility and timelessness for over, I guess just all out style and peak design. And here you're going to get a really cool, really just high complication, but it is wrapped up into a really, really sweet design that I can really appreciate. This is their new ROTO model in black, and it's basically a casino-inspired wandering hour watch at an unprecedented price, drawing inspiration from the grand roulette wheels of casinos to really keep you feeling like a high roller. Now, the final price is still to be announced on these, but they are planning to keep it well under $500. I believe maybe even getting into $300 range. While, you might find similarly driven competitors between 600 to 1,000. And of course, if you start talking, Swiss stuff, then it gets way more expensive from there. But what I do like is the actually more stylized and kind of sedate, understated execution they did here. And the case itself is only like 38.8 millimeters wide, and it is just a real looker in the flesh. So with that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay guys, let's check this piece out, and I have to say, again, very handsome. I love the way that they really layered this, and some of you are wondering, what time is it? Earlier it was 10:10. Yeah, kept in line with the old 10:10 hand position, but now it's about 10:15. Check that out. Pretty easy, and when you're setting it, of course, you're going to want to set it on one of the kind of main times there within a 5-minute interval, just because there's not really a super easy way to break down the tracks of minutes in between. So this is definitely going to be a bit of a compromise in terms of just daily telling the time, but giving you a rough estimate within 5 or 10, well, not 10, I would say within 5 minutes, right? 3 to 5 minutes. I think you can kind of choose that. And this is the most sedate option. There's also a blue dial and a green dial option, and they all looked fantastic. I kind of wish I could have had them all come in, but I get it. They only have so many samples they can send out. So big shout out to OLTO-8 for reaching out, because I think this is actually a really cool piece that I think is even more wearable than a normal wildcard. Like, this is a fun watch that you could easily take to watch meets, and that's something I've really been getting into as of late. Just something in terms of sparking a conversation. Of course, I'm all about bringing rare Seikos places, but stuff like this is just so much fun. Now, in terms of the size, right, that's where this is really great, because a lot of the stuff I've been showing you guys in terms of some of these Asian manufactured high complication watches typically are a little bit larger in size. Here you're going to get a 38.8 millimeter diameter, a 12.3 millimeter thickness, but guys, that 12.3 millimeters is including that high dome, which, crazy enough, look how like invisible the dome is there, but you can actually tell that adds quite a bit of height. That's at least 2 to 3 millimeters right there, and my gosh, is it still highly legible. So of course that's a double dome, domed on the other side, domed on the outside, and just look at how glorious. Oh my gosh, that just looks fantastic, guys. And I have to tell you, in person it looks even better. So the lug to lug on here, let me check my notes, 45.7, so a very, very manageable lug to lug. And you can see really interesting kind of scallops taken out, hollowed out section on that mid case to give you some nice features nice personality. They didn't just copy and paste anything. I really, really like that. And you can see really beautiful flowing, almost liquid style case because of that flowing curvature. And it is all polished with basically the only brushing happening here on that case back. But man, this is a gorgeous piece. That's what I really, my whole main thing was, I appreciate the look of this piece, and then the way that it works in terms of being a wandering hour, I find just really, really cool. So let's go ahead and kind of show you guys, let's demo that. So we pull the crown out, and then we'll take this and we'll turn it, right? So now it's 1030. 1035, 1040. But one thing you'll notice is, take a look at here. So you have the 11 that's coming around, right? Boom. But also during that time, you see this number right here, this 6. That's where the other action's happening. That's going to now turn into a 12, right? And see that 10 and how there's a 1 there? If I keep it going, now that 10 becomes a 1. So that is how it just continually will keep going. And I just love how simple yet complex that is. Then we're going, now it's, 110, 115, 120, 125. And then we get to, let's keep going. Now it's 210, 220, 225, right? So I just really find that extremely satisfying. And even the way that they layered everything here, this is 3-dimensional. And again, for them to be able to get all of this, really lightweight and milled out, that is just extremely impressive. And then to get it to all fit under this beautiful dome. And yes, it is a high dome. And yes, 12.3 millimeters is thick for a dressy watch. But my gosh, guys, I mean, the thickness is totally worth it. Look at that. Look at that profile you get. It's, that there's something really special going on under there with really high precision. And yeah, I like the creativity a whole lot. And then of course, you do get an interesting way. You're just reading the numerals. It's almost set up like it would be, some type of retrograde, but it just keeps circling around, and you're pretty much going to go from 0, top of the hour, to the bottom of the hour, just within this upper scale. And then they fill the lower scale out nicely. Hey, automatic, the brand name, the model name, and then the water resistance, which I think is very, very cool. Now, the crown itself is a push-pull crown, and the inside is a Miyota 9039, so there are no ghost positions, so you can pull it out and it's going to hack, versus pulling it out and then there being a date disc, just kind of floating around in there. You don't have to worry about that. And I'm just infinitely impressed by how cool this one came out. Now, in terms of the dial, you're getting this great multi-layered kind of gradient enamel dial, right? And that's just the base of everything. Then you have this 360-degree revolving wandering hour complication. And then you're getting also, this great printed Japanese superluminova. So this is actually able to glow, which is a really nice surprise in terms of legibility at night, and just giving you a little bit more fun to a very interesting and again very fun timepiece. The water resistance, like you guys noticed, 5 atmospheres or 50 meters, which means that hey, it's if it gets splashed on, rained on, you'll be fine. But you don't want to really submerge something like this in water. You just want to always make sure that that crown is secured whenever you're going to be around anything wet. Now, in terms of the lug width, 22 millimeters, which is going to make this a real strap monster. But I do like the way that this looks in terms of it just gives it a bit of a more upscale look by having it on this crocodile patterned calf leather, which does taper down to 18 millimeters at the signed buckle. And it also does have, it's also milled. You can see even the fingers milled there. And then you do have quick release spring bars. So this thing's fully loaded, guys. But with that said, let's actually get it on the wrist and see how it wears. All right, guys, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, this wears beautifully. Check that out. Not too high at all. and the additional height that you get gives you actually a ton of visual interest and a lot of legibility, not necessarily of the time, but of the complication of the dial. And of course, if I do get my wrist too close to the camera, you're gonna get a bit of perspective distortion. So what I'm gonna do is lay my wrist nice and flat and then just tighten up the frame here so you guys can take a more detailed look at this watch while still keeping a truer aspect ratio as to how it would sit possibly on your own wrist. And although I do have a wider wrist, it is relatively round, so it's not like I have this big flat long wrist that it's going to accommodate, you know, every long lug to lug. The way that this sits will actually probably be pretty similar to how it might sit on somebody with a smaller wrist that just happens to be a bit flatter. So really dig this one, guys. You can see all the organic flowing lines just beautifully sit and curve and hug the wrist in a really nice way. And even if this did have a very stark kind of classically dressy dial, the case, the strap, I mean, the way it all flows together is already quite enticing, and I really like that. But with all that said, let's actually get this piece off the wrist, set up for some loom shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Oh, as you can see, very cool loom. I'm not sure that it was quite charged up to the best of its ability, so we'll give it a little supercharge here with the black light. Okay. And check it out. It definitely, I think I might just have to move it a little closer to the camera just so we can give it a fair shot. Okay, a little bit closer in now. Let's go ahead and hit the lights. And hopefully my camera is still able to pick this up because I think it's actually pretty cool. But it might just be so finely applied that it's going to be a bit rough. You can see it already went dark there, but you guys can see it actually does have quite a bit of loom applied. And of course, this is a pre-production prototype, but at the end of the day, it's not some type of, diver or loom beast there. But I do find the fact that they even added any loom just super interesting. So I do like the way that looks. Gave it a little supercharge there, but you can see it is quickly fading. So what I'll do is work in a bit of low light transition. And again, some of it in terms of the way that it's fading, a lot of it can be due to the camera. It's just trying to regulate everything there. And create a balanced picture. But one thing I always like to work out, of course, is a bit of a low light transition because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to be walking in and out of a building, hanging out maybe underneath the shade of a tree. So it's nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes are like in less than optimal lighting, to maybe even include some harsh lighting that typically could expose some types of production defects. But all you're going to see is a couple of my fingerprints and smudges and whatnot that probably needed to be wiped off of that beautiful high dome crystal. And I really do enjoy the way that gradient dial, there's a certain kind of smokiness and dimension that it adds underneath those clear discs. And then that really cool, center kind of wandering hour mechanism there, and with its kind of 3D nature. Very cool. I mean, look at that. It's still quite legible even when the loom isn't working in terms of it just being white print. And then again, of course, the way that you're reading the time, you're not using this probably for life and death timing situations anyway. So guys, closing thoughts on the wrist. This is really lovely to wear. Definitely closer to 9mm thin without the inclusion of that high dome crystal. So definitely keep that in mind. It is very slick and understated, and that complication just really pops without being overly in your face, which I can absolutely appreciate the subtlety of that execution there. And then in terms of model variants, like I mentioned before, it's also available in either a blue or green colorway, or this black one as seen here. And then in terms of comparable models, guys, under $400 for a truly interesting and still handsome dress watch. Like, even that is hard. And that's even if you're looking at traditional handsome dress watches. If you're going to find one that is also quite equally interesting as it is handsome, I mean, that's where it gets tough, especially at that price point. So I think it's pretty hard to find a direct comparable for something like this, just because I think it's doing something really different and really fun. Sure, you could go with something more simple, but this really adds such a well-balanced touch of pizzazz to an otherwise classic and quite sedate silhouette, right? So when you're looking at every other component apart from the complication and the dial, everything else really, really works for me. Even the high dome, especially when you have the cool, rotating 3D structure underneath. So for me, guys, the bottom line, the OLTO-8 Roto is a genuine stunner. If this was Swiss made or German made, it'd easily pull a hefty premium, and this would be something that would be sold for multiple thousands of dollars. But considering how rarely dedicated dress watches are worn for most modern collectors, right, in terms of their daily rotation, it actually makes a lot of sense to spice up the space with a fun wild card type of watch just like this, right, that actually fits within that fun dressy space. And yeah, maybe you are going to wear a suit, or you're going to wear some long sleeves or something like that, and you do want to have something more understated, slides underneath the cuff, but still is quite a conversation starter. I think that's where this watch will really, really shine. But let me know what you guys all think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.